Hey guys, how's it going? In the last episode, we used Jakarta REST to write a client to access REST service. And now we'll see that we can use the Jakarta REST Client API also in our server code, which means we will write a client on the server side to access another REST service. In the last episode of this video series, we stopped when I said we can do this code of the client much easier. If you remember, we wrote a rather elaborate code to demonstrate several ways to reuse things, to get things done dynamically by reusing, for example, pre-created web targets that are used to extend them with a path, with query parameters and so on, to create other web targets. And you can reuse a web target as often as you like to execute requests. And now we will go into the server code and extend that a bit. But first, why do I want to use the Jakarta REST Client API in a server? Isn't that strange? Actually, it's one of the most used use cases of the Client API because often you have to write servers that don't store their own data. They are aggregators, which means you have a client that calls your code on the server, and your code aggregates the results or responses of lots of other requests they have sent to other services. For example, like a holiday booking page where you want to book a flight and a hotel in one step. So first it goes to the airline and checks if there is a free seat on the day you want. And then it checks for the hotel, is there a free hotel room on the day you want? And if both is possible, it does a booking, and it gives you back a single booking code which consists of both of the seat in that flight and that hotel room. So this is quite common, and this is why I want to show you not only how to make the client code easier compared to the last episode, but also how that is done in the server side, because there is no main method and all that, so there are a few differences. So what is the code on the server side actually looking like? In fact, we don't have any changes in the main method, we don't have any changes in the POM file, because as I already said in the last episode, we have everything in place for using the client on the server side, because we added it when we started the project. And just to remember from the last episode, your product could come in separated parts for client and server, like REST EC and Jersey does. So you have to add this on your server side, even if it's called client. And for Jakarta REST, there is no difference. Jakarta REST is everything in one jar file. So this one is the same code, but the execution of the client will have a difference. So let's jump into our resource method, and you see here the resource method, like we already did, it returns a greeting. But the greeting now shall have content that comes from a third-party server. If you wonder what its server does, it's a service that returns information about time zones. So it's not super useful, but it's nice for testing REST client APIs like I did. It's a public service, it's free of charge, and you just can send a request and it will provide you the requested information. In my case, what I'm requesting is I want to have the current time at a particular time zone, and in my case it's UTC. So let's see what that is doing. I package that code in a private static method just to have it a bit more tidy. Here you see the time zone that goes in as a string, like in my case UTC. And you see we have a time series web target. You learned about web targets in the last episode when we used it on the client, on a standalone CLI client. Now we're using web targets on the server side to call them. And there's another nice method I'm using here from the web targets API, which is called resolve template. So what we do here is that we have a URI which is using template strings. So in the template string there is a parameter, and this parameter is resolved. So how does it know it's a parameter? It's because of the curly braces. So it knows this is a parameter. And the name of the parameter is between the curly braces. So this one resolves that. Why are I'm not using the web target in an elaborate way like I did it here? So because first I wanted to show you that I don't have to if I don't want it. So I can do everything in a single string. For example, when there is no dynamic at all. That external service, the worldtimeapi.org page, tells you exactly that string. That will never change. So why should I make up any code to glue that strings together? I just can copy that URI from the web page. There is nothing wrong with copy and paste when they say this is always the full string that you have to give. So I'm doing that. And they say on their website, this is the parameter you have to give. So that's why I'm using this one as a parameter, because I want to be able to put in different information here without using string gluing or web target child creation. Creating a web target imposes a bit of a time delay because we have to parse this string and we want to write a super fast server. So we don't create web targets with every single call, but we are using a static web target here. And this is pretty neat because also creating a client for the Jakarta REST API needs, well, rather long time. In the last episode, I told you it's rather the same time than setting up a server, because it has to do a lot of magic in the background, find the providers and use CDI, and this all needs time. But if we go this way on the server, we have a private static client. Then this code is executed when the server is booting. So we have rather long time when it comes to server booting. If our container virtual machine is starting, it's absolutely okay if we squander a few seconds. So the 1 or 2 seconds that this code imposes is not a big deal. So we do this just once. What we want to have is that when the server is ready to run, and now there are coming requests, and there possibly are thousands of requests per second, we don't want to invest this time for creating the client or for parsing the URI anymore. So that's why we are using this way to create a client and not this way. This way still would work actually, but it's something different. It would, if you copy this one in your resource method, it would execute for each request, so it would squander a lot of time and CPU cycles, and this is not necessary. We can spare this. So let's always write nice and short code and readable code and functional code, but also code that executes as fast as it can. So this is why I'm doing this one. The only thing I have to do is to resolve the template, right? So that's the sole thing I have to do here. So what I get back actually is an object you can see here of type web target again. And now I'm creating a request. This means if the time zone wouldn't be dynamic information, I wouldn't go with the solution to have a parameter here. Then I wouldn't need resolve template. I could just call request for each single execution of this method. So we have this request method, and we provide what we want to get back. This is from the last episode. You can see it here. I already did that same code here. And again, from the last episode, we have the get, and it provides a time info class. This is again a record I have written for wrapping the JSON that we're getting back from the world time API. You can find that on their website actually. By the way, this is their website. You can find the specification of the API on that website easily. So you have all the methods that you can execute and all the descriptions of the data that you will get back. So the last thing that we want to do is from the record that we got back, this one, we want to know the actual date time. So the question is, how is that data given into that record? Well, this is the magic that Jakarta REST does for you. Jakarta REST is using the JAX-RS API under the hood. So if it sees there is a record and that record wants to have a parameter, then it looks up this name in the JSON. And the nice thing is that I use exactly that name. So it parses this name from the JSON. So we can simply call datetime here. This is the magic that does Java SE for us, because records create one getter named like the parameter in the constructor. So this is rather easy to write and read and has a lot of magic done for you in the background. And as you can see here, we're doing exactly the same than we did in the last episode, but in much shorter time, because we are reusing that objects and in a really brief code line. For comparison, this is the same code that we wrote last time. So now, but we want to see that code execute actually. So let's run it. So we have to find the run button. So here it is. And it's booting up the server. It tells us the base URL just as it did all the episodes before. And now let's run our client from last time. And this is unchanged. And you see the result here is changed from the last episode. The last episode just said hi, and the new episode says hi at, and then we have the timestamp here. Oops. Sorry. And then we have the timestamp given here. If we want to know the code for this, this is glued together with a string format. So to sum up, we can write really quick executing and brief to read and easily to understand code when we go with the Jakarta REST API in a slightly different way by, for example, wrapping client calls in special methods that are easily to understand, like this one, current time for time zone, and by reusing objects created at bootstrapping, and by gluing together things in a fluent API style in a single code line instead of writing elaborate code that does everything in a single step and is not really reusing things. So far for today, I hope you liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, donate some dollars using a GitHub, And as always, stay safe and party on.